and welcome to this episode of the Capitalized Life and Retirement Show. I'm your host, Matthew Johnson, president and owner of Johnson Wealth and Income Management, a retirement income source located in Clear Lake, Humboldt, and Ankeny, Iowa. Hope you're doing well, taking a little bit of time for yourself, and welcome to today's program. Today we're discussing the Federal Reserve, and obviously it is not the most riveting topic. But today there is so much drama going on at the Federal Reserve. There are so many different moving parts. We need to be aware. We need to be on top of these things. We need to know exactly what's happening to the best of our ability, because no doubt this is something that affects you. It affects me. It affects the market. It affects the economy. It affects the prices we pay. It affects the stock market and the things that we're investing in. And whether we're just on this side of retirement, where we're nearly there but not quite, or we're on the other side of the equation where we've been retired for quite some time, what the Federal Reserve does matters to you and it matters to me. Today we're going to be looking at all of those different various facets and kind of identifying what do we need to be careful of, what do we need to be watching for. Now, if you're brand new to the Capitalized Life and Retirement Show, I just want to say a warm welcome, but I also encourage you to go to our website. If you're the person that likes to learn, you're the person that wants to be financially literate, you want to be aware of the things that you need to be careful of in order to properly save and properly enter into retirement and be successful at it, well, I would like to think you've made it to the right place. We encourage you to go to the website, Johnson, W-I-M, as in wealthincomemanagement.com, and look under the resources page where there is just a tremendous amount of information, white papers, there's past podcasts and videos and radio shows, things that you can listen to, things that you can watch, things you can read. I also encourage you to get a copy of my book, The Capitalized Retirement. It's available at all major book resellers for a reasonable price, something that will allow you to be able to have something tangible in your hand to read through, and then when you're done, when you've gotten all the goodie out of it, I guess you pay it forward. You pass it on to someone else that you think could really appreciate the help in being able to understand how are you ultimately successful at retirement. And in my opinion, the definition of successful retirement is having more income than what you need. I don't care if I'm a millionaire, or I'm a quadrimillionaire, or I'm not a millionaire at all. As long as I have the income that I want to do all the things that I want to do, I'm happy as a clam. And in this particular case, all too often we've been sold this idea that happiness comes from a number, how much you've accumulated. Well, I'm here to tell you it's actually how much you get paid and how much you get to spend each and every month that really matters the most. So let's dig right in. First and foremost, you know, my dad used to make fun of soap operas, and he would call one of the more, shall we say, popular soap operas as My Stomach Churns. Well, the reality is that we've been seeing an awful lot of drama that has been taking place in the Federal Reserve. Obviously, we know that several months ago there was an investigation that was launched by the government into the Federal Reserve because they had such massive overruns in their building renovations. Well over $1 billion in excess in overruns. So quite a bit of money. And that was money that you and I helped to pay for. This is obviously taxpayer dollars that are going towards the renovation of the Federal Reserve building. And so we saw that investigation being launched, and in some respect, it may have felt very justified. In other aspects, it was looked at as potential squeeze by the government, by President Trump, to the Federal Reserve to get them to lower interest rates, which we all know that he wanted those interest rates to go down. Well, the reality is that investigation was finally dropped, and that kind of gave way for the new chair by the name of Kevin Warsh to take over and to take the place of Jerome. Now, that took place, I believe, May 17th or June 17th, something like that. Don't quote me on that. But here's the irony. He is the 17th chair of the Federal Reserve. And obviously, to become the chair of the Federal Reserve, you have to go through questioning. You have to go through lots and lots of investigation. And he maintained that he wants to see the Federal Reserve remain autonomous. He wants to see them remain independent, so on and so forth. Well, the reality is that he did get approved. It was a very close race, 54 to 45. But as a result of the investigation being dropped and that allowing Jerome Powell to step down as the active chair, that now made way for Kevin Warsh to take over. Now, what is it like when you're in the Federal Reserve and you're the chair? Well, obviously under a great deal of spotlight, you are under a great deal of criticism, you are under a great deal of scrutiny, and in this case, every single word that you speak is going to be looked at, it's going to be analyzed, and it's going to be interpreted. And for Kevin Warsh, obviously the stock market was not any different with Kevin as it has been with Jerome Powell or Ben Bernanke or I don't remember her name. It escapes my name, but this Janet Yellen. All of these Federal Reserve's chairs have been under scrutiny in the public eye, basically running economic policy, setting interest rate policy, and as a result, this has created sometimes a great deal of instability within the stock market, a great deal of instability within the economy. You may remember Janet Yellen going negative in interest rates. How can you go negative in interest rates? It boggled the mind of individuals, you and I. But here's the thing. We know that based upon his first public address, he is suggesting that he is committed to this idea of having a 2% inflation rate. Now, personally, my friends, I think that this is ridiculous. I believe that it's certainly artificially low. It is certainly something that is almost unobtainable for an economy to run at an inflation rate of 2%. Historically, the United States of America has run at a greater pace than 2%, but somehow, way back when, we got it in our brains at the Federal Reserve that inflation needed to run no more than 2%. And of course, when you're seeing very steady growth, you're seeing unemployment at 4.3%, and you're seeing the current rate of inflation higher than 2%, well, that gives you justification, I guess, if you're trying to get that inflation number down. It gives you all of the power to be able to do what you need to do in order to slow the economy down to get that inflation down. We've seen this happen. We've seen the opposite of it happen. We know that after COVID-19 in 2021, the Federal Reserve dropped interest rates to zero, and that was somewhat understandable. I think that they went too far, but I get it. They were trying to get the car moving that was stalled in the middle of the road as quickly as possible. And, well, guess what? It worked. It did go ahead and move things along because interest rates going to zero allowed people to build new homes. It allowed people to have the ability of purchasing first homes and buying new cars and renovating things and investing in businesses. And so it happened to really get things moving. However, we then spent the next 3 years in 2022, 2023, and 2024 combating that inflation, bringing it down from nearly 10% to try to get it back down to where it is today. And so I guess the message that we need to take away from Kevin Warsh's first public address is that he's not going to do anything. He's not going to really take and go anywhere with this goal of 2%. He's going to continue to focus on it. Well, what that led to was the Federal Reserve keeping interest rates at 3.5 to 3.75. And it also led to Kevin Warsh explaining to all of us, you and I, that interest rates are likely to go up in the future. Now, of course, I'm certain that this absolutely smoked the socks of President Trump, because obviously President Trump feels the opposite. He feels that interest rates should go down. And in this case, the Federal Reserve is saying, listen, we've got economic data that indicates that it's still too high, it's still above our target, it's still above our goal, and we actually need to be hawkish, in this case, not dovish. So that was the first takeaway. The second takeaway is that Kevin Warsh made it very, very clear to us that he is going to be changing the style, the resource, the mechanisms, the tools that they're going to be using at the Federal Reserve to take and ascertain economic data. It has been said that for well over the last 50 to 75 years, the Federal Reserve has been using really the same archaic information and data gathering points and machines, or whatever you want to call it. And as a result, Kevin is suggesting, listen, it's time for an upgrade. It's time for us to start taking the pulse and the temperature of the economy in other areas so that we maybe get more accurate information so that we're actually making better decisions. Now, I'm all for that. I think that that's great news that they are attempting to upgrade information. Of course, we see that in society. We've got all sorts of additional tools at our disposal today for information gathering, and we're not using the same ones we did a decade ago. So the Federal Reserve should probably follow suit in that respect. However, he also made it very, very clear that he does not like the transparency that Jerome Powell has created within the Federal Reserve. And now that he is the chair, he's going to be speaking more, shall we say, benignly. He's going to be speaking more in the gray zone. He's going to be speaking more infrequently to the public. And when he addresses the public, when he addresses Congress, he's going to maybe use ambiguous terms instead of being extremely clear. Now, this has implications, my friend, because as I have suggested before, the Federal Reserve drives policy, and that affects the economy. And not only that, but it also affects the stock market, the thing that you may be investing in right now, the thing that I'm investing in right now, and that so many Americans are investing in. And what we need to know is that the stock market in particular, my friend, does not like surprises. And with Jerome Powell, well, the market was very clear with Jerome, and Jerome seemed to be very clear with the market. There was this almost unspoken understanding, well, with Kevin Warsh, if he's not going to be speaking as frequently, if he's not going to be speaking as clearly, using clear and understandable words, simply so that he does not feel as though he is painting the Federal Reserve into a corner where the public or the stock market can now hold the Federal Reserve accountable and make them do what they said that they were going to do. Maybe they had committed earlier to raising interest rates and they didn't, or they committed earlier to lowering interest rates and then they didn't. Of course, they don't want to be the whipping boy. They've been there, done that. Well, the point here is that we have to be careful to understand that there could be additional volatility now as a result of a different language pattern that Kevin Warsh, the chair, the new chair at the Federal Reserve, is going to be laying out. This is something that's very important to you and to I, because, well, here's the thing. If interest rates go up, the economy slows. And if the interest rates go up and the economy slows, my friend, what does that likely mean? What is the implication? What is the logical conclusion of interest rates going up? If you said the stock market going down, I would agree with you. I would say this is altogether very important to you and I. So let's piece all of these things together. First and foremost, we have a new mouthpiece for the Federal Reserve. Someone who is younger, someone who wants newer technology to be more accurate, to be more efficient in speed and timing of information gathering. We've got a new chair, a Federal Reserve chairman who decides that the goal of 2% is still worthwhile, and he's still committed to keeping interest rates high and potentially even now raising interest rates in September in order to get closer to that goal of 2% inflation. It sounds noble. It sounds wonderful. We'd all love less inflation. But my friends, are we really wanting what comes in order to be able to get that lower inflation? Higher interest rates, which means a slower economy. We have to be careful to understand that now information is going to be coming from the Federal Reserve to you and I, and it's going to be more difficult. We're going to need that cipher to be able to understand the words being used, the tonality, the rhythm. All of these things are going to make it more difficult for us to ascertain the direction of travel for the Federal Reserve. And that means that it could create more volatility within the stock market. It could also make it much more challenging to be able to understand where to invest our money because, well, quite honestly, the feds aren't being clear and concise with us as to which direction they're going to go. So what do we make of all of this? Well, the point here is this. We know that the Federal Reserve is a force to be reckoned with. That's the reason that they say don't fight the Fed. But as long as Kevin Warsh keeps a cool head, as long as Kevin Warsh is even-keeled, he's not too bombastic, he's not too radical in interest rate increases in order to be able to try to reach that goal of 2%, which is a very fleeting thing anyway. As long as your money is being watched, your money is being managed, your money is in a position where it's doing what it's supposed to do, which is to create income for you. Income with interest and dividends in abundance. Your principal being the machine creating a known return for you every single year. Well, let's face it, if interest rates go up, that's going to create opportunities for us to be able to buy more stocks at lower prices, hopefully. And it's also going to give us the opportunity of, once again, seeing fixed income, the things that we love, the things that create that known return for us through interest and dividends, well, it's going to give us an opportunity to buy while they are on sale. If you're getting to this point of retirement, you're about to make that transition from the accumulation stage to the distribution stage, my friends, do not forsake this opportunity. We don't know what's going to happen with this new chair in the future. We don't know what's going to happen with the Federal Reserve. We don't know. We might see more rate increases. And in the future, if that does happen, well, we have to be prepared for any number of economic implications. But for now, do what's right. Stop focusing on the headlines and start focusing on your own portfolio. Get with a fiduciary, someone whose area of expertise is that of income, and help them do three things. Number one, reduce the risk on your principal. Number two, maximize the output of income on your principal. And number three, give you the retirement of your dreams. More income than you can imagine. My friends, I'm Matthew Johnson. Thank you for listening and watching. And remember, it's up to you to make today a great day.